Oh, we've got a massive audience for Ask the Analysts.
Hey, getting a tardy note already, and we haven't even started.
Skipped how long?
You an analyst, Alistair?
Let's start very... Sam, straight in with the question. Yes, brilliant.
You said let's start.
Yeah, let's start. You go with the question.
Okay, I have a question. So you guys show the chart showing how UC is about 1/3 moved to cloud 15 years into this transition. What's it really going to take to get the next 2/3 in UC to move to cloud?
Another pandemic.
Ouch.
Anything else? Well, hopefully not that. But I think what we see generally from the interesting thing about the research that we've done recently is we always ask businesses, are you going to move your communications workloads fully into the publicly hosted multi-tenant cloud? And every year, single digits say no over the fullness of time. That has actually increased the last 12, 18 months we've done the research from sort of high single figures into mid-teens, depending on where you look at regionally. And one of the things we heard in the research, all the surveys, that there is an increasing demand for hybrid deployment methods. So I don't think the rest of the market will go. I think there will always be a certain proportion of businesses that either want a premises-based deployment or some sort of hybrid or something privately hosted in a data center. I don't think we're ever going to reach 100% cloud penetration.
No, I think also what might accelerate over the next few years is what happens to the companies left doing just on-prem. And
you mean how many times did they go bankrupt?
There's questions around that and what happens there, but I think that there's arguments around that where we've seen that market consolidate down from 20 down to probably 3 or 4 now major ones out there, maybe 5 if we take that. But it's not a massive market left. And you look at the partnerships they're dealing with, what they're doing there, their strategies moving forward, which is maintain that base, keep that running, layer cloud on top of that, do hybrid on top of that. Yeah. There's going to be very small numbers of companies, I think, who are going to be pure on-prem going, we're not going to the cloud, because I think the innovation that we're seeing is only really coming on cloud now. So our company's going to literally cut themselves off from new innovation and go, we're not going. I think they'll go to hybrid, and then over time they'll look at moving to cloud. We're seeing some pushback in some markets on certain blue light services.
Yeah, verticals, in particular.
Some Nordic countries who are closer to Russia and going, we don't want to be anywhere near a cloud, because if suddenly lines get cut that they have, we still need to make sure that the phones ring. So, there are still spaces that will see that happen. But I think your statement that a third hasn't moved, there's a lot of emerging markets where you look at all of the big cloud providers have not got any real penetration of sales teams go to market in those countries. So that's holding that back. You look at maturing markets, you look at the US, you look at UK, you look at Netherlands, you look at Nordics, we're above 60% or 50% at least in each of those. You go down to Germany and France, you're knocking around 20%.
Part of my question is, it surprises me that we're 15 years into this on a mature technology and it's still molasses slow.
I think that for a lot of people, they don't need to move.
If
it works. It sits there, very happy days. Why would they go and change that? You look at some people when they look at the economics of the cloud model and go, well, that doesn't make sense for our business as well, because they're going, well, we've divested. The cost of this has completely been paid off now, and we're just happy paying maintenance on it. Why do we need to now move to a €5, €10, $20, whatever model you want to pay per month per user? Well, for some of the people, it just doesn't make sense. So there's things holding people back.
Anybody else on the panel have opinion? We've had Alistair at the end, who's our consulting director. I'm sure a number of you know him and ran one of the panels. And I just welcome to Tom, who recently joined us. So Tom, some of you will know, has a very esteemed journalist career at CRN and UC Today and various publications, so we're pleased that he's joined us recently as senior analyst. Any other thoughts to that question, and then we'll ask any other?
No, I think what Dom said is correct. Like there is, especially even in the CCAS market, there is the understanding, if you look at somewhere like Germany, that they've paid for it, it's working, their customers want to call them, why would they buy something new, right? And I think there is that market trend. All of our research shows people want to move to cloud, but something is stopping them. It's do I want to spend the money now and go through the transition now, or will I do it next year and then next year never comes? It's how much do I have to spend before I start seeing returns? How painful is the transition going to be? How happy am I or unhappy am I with what I've got? I think that kind of sums up what's delaying these cloud migrations. It's not that the cloud technology isn't good. It's just, when do you push the button? How much is that button going to cost you for the rest of your company's life?
And maybe we're not, as an industry, demonstrating the value correctly to the customer. Can we believe that? Maybe we started originally just selling the PBX features in a cloud world, and then we haven't really demonstrated. And I think in the intelligent workplace in the future, where the integrations, the AI, the value can only be delivered in a cloud environment, we might actually start to see the value of the outcomes coming through to the customer. So I think we've had and we were talking on our panel earlier about the sales transition that's going to has to happen. Maybe we've got a group of salespeople who were at one point who were used to selling PBX, and they turned and they sold cloud PBX in the same way they'd sold it previously, and they've been selling. We haven't, as an industry, really understood how to demonstrate the value yet, and I think that is a big challenge that has come up very clearly in this session today.
If you think about the intelligent workplace as well, that integration that you put up this morning isn't going to happen with on-prem technology. It's going to all those vertical solutions mixed with the cloud and the CPaaS, that can only happen with
And you
the cloud.
can't get the data visibility across that.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Yes. I'm going to. Yeah, I'll give you the mic.
Matt, roving reporter.
See, I wanted to buy a mic in a queue.
Hi, just on the point of hybrid, one of the things that I find really interesting at the moment is data sovereignty, and more customers asking for data sovereignty. So that then has an opposite effect on a UCaaS service and provider, because it's not data sovereign, or could be, but there's challenges and things like the Patriot Act. How is that affecting that transition? Because in my mind, that's probably linked to hybrid in some respects, but I don't know. I'm looking for your opinion.
It is definitely slowing it. I think we have heard in the last 2 rounds of Cloud Comms interviews that there is hesitancy in the market caused by a number of things, all of which we've covered today. Macroeconomic circumstances, global political instability, and that is all causing hesitancy. And therefore, to Finbar's point, if it's working, maybe we think about this next year. And I think we've heard that in all of the markets that we all of the developed markets, including the US and including the UK, that there is that uncertainty causes hesitancy and causes delays.
But I also think we're moving to a position where it's in the cloud becomes not a very good answer for a lot of markets. It's not in the cloud, it's in a data center in Germany on a German version of the platform that's running and not shipping the data across overseas. There are lots of companies who are going to want to start having that complex answer where it's not a cloud solution, it's a European-based cloud solution that doesn't share any data outside Europe. So data sovereignty is never a question because that data is in a place you understand where it is, and it's within a specific area.
Great. Any other questions? Rami. God, it's going to be the day.
Thank you, Matt. So I'm seeing more and more businesses, particularly in the micro segment, adopting WhatsApp in their day-to-day activities. I wonder if you have any thoughts on how WhatsApp is shaping the industry or impacting the industry.
They're pointing at me because I've been talking about this for about 2 or 3 years. We are starting to see providers working out how to monetize and offer. So WhatsApp's been a complex model to offer, partly because the way it's commercially modeled, the way that, you've got 4 or 5 different types, and the way that the pricing is public. But there's players in this market in the last year who have started to bring commercial models together of how to offer it and how to position it. And so I think that's going to be a big change in the next year or 2, is just how you probably heard me say it before. I just can't understand how you can be a business communications provider and not have a messaging strategy. To me, it doesn't really compute. So, but it has been tricky. The OTT, everybody says SMS is dead and it's all about OTTs. SMS is not dead, especially in business communications. SMS is still the only way you can guarantee the delivery of a message to an individual. You can't do that with WhatsApp unless you know they're a WhatsApp user. And I tell the story that I worked on a travel business. I told a few people this. And where I saw the traffic for all the major airport carriers that over their own apps, over whether they did it over email, whether they did it over SMS, or whether they did it over WhatsApp. Only one of about 50 airlines did any serious messaging over WhatsApp. The rest of them use SMS specifically for critical communication. Don't even use their own apps. If they've got a critical communication like your bag's missing, your plane's late, they'll go SMS first because it's the only way. And RCS will change that. That's another way of doing it. But no, messaging, WhatsApp, it does offer some opportunities, but actually where I'm seeing it is some really interesting use cases. So it's not like a broad-based product, but like in CX and in customer communications and those areas we're seeing, and there's 2 or 3 providers, and I think the VoiceFlex guys are probably gone. I can't see them in the room. For instance, they've looked at building it as a product and started productizing it in the UK market. There's a couple of players who have done it now, so you should have a look at their way they're doing it. They're doing interesting bundling, but they still have the challenges. There's still quite a lot of, because you've got to, as you know, if a message is delivered and they don't think it is a customer service message and it's you've got a different price point all of a sudden. So there's some challenges, but yeah, I think it's going to be a crucial piece.
I was just going to say in the panel session I ran earlier, The Voice is Dead, we had a poll, people, how do people make phone calls when they're abroad, back to their loved ones, and almost everybody well, not everybody, but 80, 90% of people put their hands up and said they use WhatsApp for voice. So we have this application which is taking over a lot of IDD, and therefore people got to start taking it seriously and getting it into the portfolio and understand how to monetize it, and not only just for messaging but for voice.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Just to add to that as well, we last year as Enterprise, I can't remember what event I was at, meeting with Airtel and Vonage, and Vonage were looking at Airtel were looking at using Vonage as their UCaaS platform going forward, and the thing that was holding it back was we cannot launch this in India unless we have a WhatsApp integration, because that's what everyone uses to communicate. If we don't have that in play, it's not going live. And that took them a while to get that into there. But you think around different countries around what messaging they use, and to the point that you raised here, everyone stuck their hands up as a predominantly UK audio. A lot of the UK audience are a very European audience here, let's say, where WhatsApp is pretty prevalent across it. You go to the US and start using WhatsApp, and no one really uses it. They're using iMessage, and they have the whole blue messages versus green messages going, if it's come from a green, it's not an iPhone and all that. But India, completely WhatsApp as well. So I think from market to market, that integration with different messaging platforms can be super key.
Yeah, the OTT landscape, we've done quite a bit of work on that, looking at which messaging, and it is complex to deliver. But
Can I ask a quick follow-up to that? Yeah. Are you guys going to start to do more research on this? You guys don't do enough research on CPaaS. Can you tell us, what country, what's the primary messaging platform, how's it changing?
yeah, we've done consulting work for big players on.
So I have to pay you more. I got it.
You got it. No, I mean, we are doing more on messaging. I mean, I have to say, you're probably looking at a bit of a CPaaS cynic. And I know you've got a CPaaS business.
I have $100 million CPaaS business.
No, not a cynic. But what I mean is, it's a wholesale messaging business. That CPaaS business has been a lot about delivering wholesale messaging. When I've done work, and I've done work for a lot of those CPaaS players, and they say, Matt, I've got 50 enterprise customers. I get really excited. And then when I look at the 50 enterprise customers there, Facebook, Meta, they're all Microsoft, and they're offering kind of wholesale messaging. So the CPaaS promise, I believe in terms of integrating messaging and those sorts of things, but I don't think the industry, I don't know if Rob's here, he's doing the CPaaS Alliance, but I've always struggled a little bit with that dichotomy between the CPaaS players, really being, it hasn't really, doing the messaging piece, not really doing the full kind of delivery of integration into workflow. But
I would tell you, I just see the customers every day. When, for example, we went through SMS registration in the U.S. this year or last year, I'm utterly surprised by the number of UC customers that view SMS as mission critical.
yeah, no, I agree with that. No.
Right? Or,
Yeah.
Integrate fully into the contact center. And so if Cavell could do a little bit more work around that
Yeah, can do.
stuff and really moving it out of that wholesale more to
Yeah, that's.
CX side of the house. I think it's
And I quite often, for fun, at dinner a few years ago, I sat one of my German friends together with one of my US friends, Susan, and said, so what's your messaging strategy? And it was just like, well, we don't have one in Germany, right? And then my American friend was saying, well, it's a huge part of our revenue and what we're doing now. So I think it's going to catch up here.
We've done 3 big projects on messaging in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And some of the biggest messaging players. So with the CPaaS as well. So we can definitely take some more money.
And we know, and we and we're looking at what the impact of RCS is. What's the impact? How's it going to play out? Okay, I think we're up to time. We're holding any one last question, or shall we go, Bertrand?
Yes, there have been many presentations about verticalization, about transversal data, intelligence, and
Yeah.
AI development. But there are an increasingly growing number of players into this ecosystem. It's also the Bangladesh presentation with so many AI specialized players.
Yeah.
What's your thought about how we will share the piece of the cake? I would say, is the cake so much bigger that there's a piece for everyone, or what will be the value split, the value sharing between the different type of players in this ecosystem? Because everyone dreams about this bigger cake, and everyone thinks at the end I'm going to have most of it. But what do you see as the drivers? Just the one who owns customer, yeah, we get most of it, or what is it?
I think when you start to add the different compartmentalized pieces of the intelligent workplace together, the pie gets pretty big, and there's probably enough for everyone. And you do see a lot of AI startups, and we were hearing about a number of them during the research, emerging players that we've never talked about. But I think effectively they're coming into they're creating new business. So I think there's enough there. Don't get me wrong, I think those that don't offer some of the capabilities that we've talked about, and we were talking about the potential disruption in the contact center from virtual agents on the front end, and do you need a full contact center? There's still, a lot of scope to be disrupted and lose out on the market. But effectively, I think there's enough there in terms of market share and growth.
I think also, and I pondered over this for a little bit, that we're getting into a world where the technology, yes, there are some of these really good new things coming to market, but it's all about go-to-market. And yeah, you might have the best tech in the world, but you haven't got a channel to sell that, it's going to be a challenge. And I think that's where you see all of those apps there, and it's like, well, how are they actually going to go and speak to those clients? How are they going to get out there? And some will be great, because they're going to go down the vertical, and they're going to absolutely nail it. Look at a company like Weave out in the US, 22,000 dentists that they've got. It's basically going after those kind of customers, and they're absolutely killing it. But you think around all the others out there, and it's a very complex landscape, and are they going to be able to get to the scale that they need to be to execute a proper go-to-market strategy, or are they going to be a few big niche cases and then run out of money, run out of runway, run out of development, and die?
I think you could be controversial and say it's not about AI at all, right? It's about how many solutions we can create that will create real value for the customer. And if we can demonstrate those, then the AI at the back end will benefit. If we can't, if it's just a whole series of random pieces of translation and transcription, but if we can start to build, it's all about, ultimately, it's not about the AI technology and who's going to get a piece of it. It's really about where is we going to use that technology to create real core values. And we can see it in verticals, we can see it in CX, we can see it in certain areas. But I think that's the transition we're talking about in this, what we're talking about, in the intelligent side of this, is it's really, not about 1,000 AI companies and whether we're going to get it. It's going to be, can we really create value in certain areas? So if I can provide your business with an ability to, to, let's say, do benchmarking against your key competitors and change the way you do business, and we're going to use AI to drive that, and you're probably going to pay quite a bit of money for that, and that's going to create a whole lot of value for all of us. But, if you're the 10th or 20th AI company doing whatever, so I think it's all about how we marry the AI, and that's why I think vertical is really interesting, actually, because some of the cases we've seen where there has been is people delivering AI in vertical use cases where they kind of really understand it enough to create specific value. That's my opinion. Okay, I think we're going to go for drinks because we've worked hard today. So, if you want to ask any of these guys after a drink, they'll be more than happy to talk to you. Big thank you for all of you who've hung around. We're going to have drinks, which is through right at the end.
Go that way.
Oh, can you go this way? Oh, you can go this way. We're going to have some drinks. Big thank you to my whole team, to Delina, who's opened the door as our events manager, done a sterling job bringing everything together. Well done. And Daniel, where's Daniel? Daniel's hiding somewhere. I can't see him, but he's around somewhere. And the team, thank you very much for coming. Thanks to our sponsors. And let's have some drinks and ask any more questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.